Hi there, I'm Elizabeth Pino and my pronouns are she, her. I'm a PhD student at the University of Maryland in the Information Studies program, and today I'd like to talk to you about how accessible many archives music scores are or aren't for disabled users. Why this topic? Well, right now in online archival spaces, music scores are typically available as PDF or JPEG files. A 2023 study by Stephanie Acau, Jeanette McKinney, and Rachel McNellis found that most newly created music scores are PDFs. If they're archived, it's usually in a PDF or PDF archive format. And those PDF formats are inaccessible to many disabled users because they aren't made in ways that are compatible with many assistive technologies. As a result, most archives digital music scores are inaccessible to many disabled users. Over the past year or so, I've been working with a sampling of 55 archives materials, and from that set, I pulled 7 example music scores, all of which ended up being PDF files. For those 7 scores, I used Adobe's accessibility report and then my own inspection to determine what the most significant accessibility barriers were for each file. While this was a small sample size, what I found was not unique to those 7 files. In fact, these were issues that occur with most every digital archive music score. 5 of the scores were image-only PDFs. An image-only PDF is literally an image of whatever is being represented, and it can't be manipulated. Think of PDF files you often open. Sometimes you can copy and paste text out of them, and sometimes you can't. When you can copy and paste text out of them, they're usually documents that assistive technologies like screen readers can read. But when you can't copy and paste, assistive technologies often can't read them. There are programs out there that can fix this for text-based documents, but those same programs don't exist yet for music, though there are people working on them. The next barrier I identified was that the scores weren't always structured in ways that made sense. For example, the scores were sometimes getting interpreted as if they were images that didn't have alt text. But music isn't an image, so it's not as simple as just adding alt text to scores. If we were to try to succinctly describe a measure of music in 2 or 3 sentences, how would we do it? We'd never be able to encapsulate all the necessary details. Finally, older scores, which are common in archives, tended to have low color contrast. We could edit those files so that they're black and white instead of tan and black, but that would be a difficult and tedious process to undertake for every score we encounter. Like low color contrast, fixing each of these items for every music score we have in our archives would be tedious and it would be so time intensive that it probably wouldn't be realistic. So, what can we do? Well, it's still in an experimental phase, but my thinking is this: MEI encoding. MEI stands for Music Encoding Initiative, and it's the equivalent of TEI, but for music. The first step for many people in MEI encoding a file is to manually enter the original score note by note into MuseScore, a free open source app. From there, we can create the MEI file, which is incredibly useful for preservation purposes, both because it's a preferred file format by the Library of Congress and because MEI files can hold metadata about the piece in the file itself. Once we have that file, we can bring it back into MuseScore, and we can export that file into formats that help with accessibility, things like Braille files, audio files, and modified state notation files. So by putting scores into MuseScore, we not only get file formats that are beneficial for long-term preservation efforts, but we also get file formats that address the aforementioned accessibility barriers. MEI encoding every score we archive is not a perfect answer, but it's the best and most effective one we have right now. If nothing else, it helps address the problems of both preservation and accessibility. To access example scores, including WAVE, Braille, and modified state notation scores, you can scan the QR code on screen to go to the project website, which links to the project GitHub. Thank you for your time and your consideration. With any questions, I can be reached at epineo@umd.edu. Again, thank you so much for watching.